Yes.
that suit a different
So,
class?
well, there's that, but there's also depending on how you play your class, and there could be, because I've gone through the game with a co-op party that's all barbarians or all wizards, and it's viable. It's just a really different feel from going through with a barbarian, a wizard, and a witch doctor. Same thing with the followers. I might be a barbarian. I'm like, well, I don't want another tank. I want somebody who's ranged. Or you might be like, I want another tank. I want to just plow through this thing, me and this other guy who's, a big fighter. So yes and no. I mean, we could say, okay, well, these guys are going to complement each other really well. But you might be like, well, these guys are just a powerhouse together. So you could have different combinations. It's because we're giving you the option of picking any one of these people. If you're not depending on what character you are, they need to be viable for whatever build you have. So.
And you'll carry them through the game and they'll level up?
Yes. We'll just sit here and stare.
This is great film, guys.
Isn't it?
Well, about the degree of randomness, are all the dungeons and stuff like that somehow connected to the main book? They are like always the same. And
The dungeons?
Yeah.
No, the dungeons are random.
They're always random.
Well, there are going to be some dungeons that might not be as random, but there are quite a few dungeons in the game are fully, completely random. So we're not losing that at all. There might be, like for instance, when you play the demo downstairs, the first 2 levels are completely random. The third level was not random. It was set. The one where you
just played it two
Uh-huh.
times. Now that you actually mention it, it's true that the first level is very different.
Yeah, so the first two levels are completely different, and it's not as obvious because what's going on right now is that we only have like 25, 30 rooms for those, and I think eventually we're probably going to have anywhere from 50 to 80. So it's like, and plus they were so small. The demo was confined to that space because we wanted people to be able to get through it. So except for the very, very beginning of the game, you're probably not going to see a lot of dungeons with only 5 or 6 rooms. No matter how many different rooms you have, no matter how many different rooms you have available, if all you're putting into a dungeon is 5 or 6, because I've played the demo a lot, and there's times where it's just like, it seems like you're going through the same rooms. There might be in a different order, you're going through the same rooms, and then all of a sudden you get this new room, you're like, oh my God, where did this come from? So it's really cool. It's just because there's so few rooms, you're not going to see as much. But they're all there. There are some really neat little scenario rooms that pop up every once in a while if you play the demo enough times or you get lucky on your first time through.
And the technology is pretty cool, actually. It's more advanced than anything in the previous Diablo series. Not only do we have randomized rooms, like with connections and that sort of thing, there's subparts of those rooms can be randomized. The monster appearances are randomized. There's times the chests will appear and not. So it's just the contents of the game as well are random. So that just like adds on to the complexity of how many different things could appear. And the main thing is it does give a lot of replayability, and it just allows you to feel like you're always exploring. You don't know what's around the next corner, or if there is a corner around that next corner. That's the same from when you went through it before. So it's something we're capitalizing on. It's definitely the heart of the game's replayability.
Yeah. And the adventures I was talking about before that happen outdoors a lot, we have there's 2 different ones you can find in the dungeon. I don't know how many times you guys have played through it. But there's the guys you can find who are looking for each other, and then there's a guy who has something he needs you to find an altar or something for him. So and those are completely random too. Those are like set pieces, we're calling them, or adventures. So that's kind of just a taste of what we're talking about in terms of randomizing the content. Sure.
In PvP mode, will we have such things as combat arenas and CTF?
Well, right now we've been working mostly on the cooperative. We want to have PvP. We have a lot of things that we're considering. We haven't really made any decisions about what we'll be shipping with the game in terms of PvP. We've played some. We've actually had some in the game, and we've played them, but we're not ready to really discuss that yet because we're not quite sure ourselves. We're looking for the best PvP experience. So.
Will there be skill synergies to change?
Yeah, well, what we've done, instead of having synergies, what we've done is we're using passive skills and runes. Passive skills are skills that, see, you have your active skills like Disintegrate or Hammer of the Ancients. Your passive skills will do things like, for instance, so you have like your Berserker tab if you're the Barbarian, and those are a bunch of different skills under the Berserker heading. So you could have some passive skills that says, all your Berserker skills will do 10% more damage or something. So you could see how that's kind of like a synergy where it has an effect on a whole bunch of different things. And then on top of that, we have random drops, which we're calling runes, that you can socket into your skills that will change what they do. Like, for instance, Magic Missile has, if you put in a multi-strike rune, you get more projectiles. But that'll have a totally different effect if you put it on what's the blade? What's the name of that thing?
On the thing that multiplies you, basically.
Yeah, yeah. You know what we're talking about. We're a little tired.
Can you remove the rune and replace it?
Yes, the runes you can. We still have socketed weapons. You can't remove those, but you can remove the runes. The rune can be interchanged, which is kind of the cool part about them because, you get this really cool rune, and you're like, well, I got to put this in my most powerful skill because it's the only rune I have. But then you get another rune that might be better than that one. You're like, oh, now I have this one, which I could put in one of my other skills and keep upgrading.
So you could actually tailor a skill for a situation. You've got a few runes.
Yes. If you're.
Do you find yourself doing that?
Not for situations, just in terms of like raw power and what I want how I want to play it, because there's certain, and it's the fun game of, this is really fun with this rune, do I want to do it this way or do I want to, so it's kind of an embarrassment of riches sometimes. You're not quite sure which angle you want to go with. It's kind of like, you have this really cool weapon you found and you find another weapon and you're like, but I really like playing with this one. Even though that one does more damage, this one has a much cooler effects. So, it's that kind of experience.
The skills do, provide a lot of customization, though. I mean, you really can, even though you're playing a certain class, you can be adjusting entirely how you approach things. With the wizard, whether you're picking like totally destructive spells or more protective things, where you're doing armor or turning people to ice, that sort of thing. It really changes the way you play.
The runes drop off, or, well, I know they're randomized, but do they drop, a lot? Or will you have questions where you get a lot of runes, or are they just they through like 10 or something?
Well, I don't know. That's a really good question. Right now they drop a lot. I'm not sure how much they're going to drop, and it kind of depends how many different kinds we come up with.
Are there like very rare runes as well?
I don't know. I mean, that's a really good question. We should write that down. That's a real good idea. I'm sure there will be, the really random, rare, fantastic rune drops. But right now I don't know if you guys saw the skill panel earlier. We're on a pretty good path for our skills, but we're still working out a lot of the little details. So we know the runes work. We know they're really fun. We know that we have a good spread of them. But in terms of getting into the final, really polishing and finessing how many runes they're going to be, how powerful they are. Whoops, the microphone there. That stuff's way late in the game. All we know right now is they're really fun to play with. So that's the first step.
And you'll be able to trade those, won't you?
Yes. Well, what we always ended up doing, because in the demo, the only